We're here for the second April 2015 Brattleboro Selectboard meeting. Welcome to everybody who's watching on BCTV. Welcome to everybody who's in attendance at the meeting. Thank you for attending, members of the press and ASL interpreters. We know that the meeting has been properly warned and has been convened. We started at 5:30 and went into executive session to discuss contract matters, labor relations matters, potential probable litigation matters, and other executive session topics. The first item on the agenda now is to approve the minutes from March 17, March 23, and April 7. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve the minutes from March 17, March 23, and April 7. Are there any comments, suggestions, proposed edits to those minutes from anybody on the board? From anybody who's in attendance? Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes from March 17, March 23, and April 7 as presented, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. The next item on the agenda is chair's remarks. Town meeting was March 21st, and since that time, we've had one organizational meeting on March 23rd, and then we had our meeting on April 7th, but because of scheduling conflicts, we haven't been able to meet since then. But I will note that we have select board meetings now scheduled every Tuesday for the next 4 weeks. This week, the first May meeting, then we have a special meeting on May 12, and then our second regular meeting on the 19th. So we'll be meeting each week for the next 4 weeks, addressing both regular business and other ongoing projects that we're working on. For example, in the upcoming weeks, we're going to be addressing our enterprise fund budgets. Those include the utilities, water and sewer budget, parking, pay-as-you-throw budgets. And we also are going to be having presentations about the zoning ordinance that's being considered, and we're looking forward to adoption after the consideration in public hearings of the zoning ordinance, probably in the early summer. I would also just note that even though the select board hasn't met in 3 weeks, there's been a lot of work that's been going on as the regular day-to-day activities of the town. We continue to move forward and to look forward to the work at Union Hill and Western Avenue, which is planned to unfold very soon. Significant work has been going on behind the scenes, looking at the police fire project. We have for presentation tonight another contract, or the bonding actually, for the completion of our wastewater facilities upgrades. We've got planning in place for the retaining wall in the Harmony lot. There's also been unfolding a comprehensive review of town operations that the town manager has been working on with department heads and other employees. And we'll hear more about that, I'm not sure at this meeting, but probably at the next meeting, I would expect.
On May 12th.
On May 12th. We're also going to be looking at our goals this year, including review of our policies and our handbook. And we also have some traffic safety related coordination going on, since we've approved that the Traffic Safety Committee coordination with local motion to do an inventory of traffic safety measures and how best to address those issues in the town as a whole. So there's a lot of work going on. We're going to look forward to meeting every week in the next 4 weeks. And we encourage anybody who's interested in any of these matters to come out and participate, to join us at our select board meetings, and to join in a committee. I'm sure we're going to have committee openings posted pretty soon as well. So we encourage everybody to step up to the extent that they're interested and participate in the life of the town. The next item on the agenda is town manager's comments. Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I just wanted to give an update about the full closure of I-91 last week for the inspection work and pothole repairs that occurred. We knew that it was going to be difficult. We had conversations with VTrans Secretary Sue Minter when she was here a month ago about it. They were accommodating and pushing it back to be during the school week, school vacation week, rather than a time when all the school-related traffic also would have been happening. But even with all of that advanced preparation, the impacts were worse than what was expected. It was taking an hour and more to move from exit 3 to exit 1 during the height of the shutdown. I will say VTrans reacted to that as well. Their communication has been really good. Just the impacts of this closure situation was horrible. They saw what was happening. We were having communication both with PCL and with VTrans during the day as it was unfolding, and they actually stopped the work that was going on out there prematurely in order to be able to reopen the road sooner than they had expected to. So unfortunately, by the time the road was opened again in the early afternoon, it took most of the rest of the afternoon for the congestion to dissipate, for things to get back to normal. We heard anecdotally of businesses that literally did no business or almost no business that day.
Downtown was horrible.
Yeah, in downtown, and I heard also in the Canal Street and Putney Road corridors, basically any place along that route.
They did no business.
There was just not business being conducted. So the state understands that. I've had a further conversation with Secretary Minter where she indicated that they're looking at lots of different options, including getting out there at daybreak on a Sunday morning and maybe doing this in pieces and doing some of this kind of work at night to the degree that it can. That really doesn't work very well for them on the inspection work. So they're just looking at everything possible. They know that it can't happen like this again on a planned basis based on the impacts that occurred. We do all understand that it could have to happen at some point if it's an unplanned situation. But you know, I just wanted to report to you and to the community that VTrans is aware that future planned shutdowns need to occur in a different manner that would be expected to have less impact. Two other quick things. One is I'd like to call attention, and if there's more detail that Chief Picasso wants to share, he can step up and do that. But there's a exercise that's going to occur this coming Sunday at Hillwinds and on Upper Demerson Road, and it could be alarming to people who see it if they're not aware that it's happening, and that it's in order to drill and have the departments be ready in the case that they might need to use a tanker system to bring water up to fight a fire at Hillwinds. And again, Chief, if you want to explain any more detail than that, I just want to make sure the community was aware of it so that when they see that activity happening on Sunday morning, they won't be alarmed.
You pretty well covered it.
Okay.
It's a training exercise in conjunction with a state school. Putney, Guilford, Vernon, Chesterfield are all participating, and we're taking this opportunity just to calculate what we would need for resources for tankers to fight a house fire up in Hillwinds.
Great.
The trucks will be running with the flow of traffic, no lights and sirens. We have put flyers out in mailboxes in the neighborhoods, done press releases, and we'll have electronic signs out starting Thursday, just to make sure we cover all our bases.
So, Chief, Upper Demerson Road will not be closed.
No, nothing will be closed.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. And finally, as part of the preparation for pay-as-you-throw implementation, we want to thank Brown & Roberts, Cumberland Farms, Fireside True Value, Hannaford's, and Price Chopper for being the first to sign up and be part of the team in the distribution of the bags. So that's all set with them, and we are anticipating that additional retail outlets will sign up to become part of that system, so that it makes it as convenient as possible for people in town to buy the bags. And also, there are 2 informational sessions that are to be held this week, on Wednesday at 6:30 at Academy School in the music room, and on Thursday at 5:30 in the gym at Oak Grove School. So we urge anybody who wants to come out and get more information about how pay-as-you-throw is going to work to please come and attend those sessions.
Thank you, Peter. The next matter on the agenda is Select Board comments and committee reports. Anybody on the Select Board?
I haven't been around.
Well, alrighty then. The next matter on the agenda, hearing nothing there, is public participation. It's an opportunity for anybody who's wants to speak to something that's not on the agenda. Mr. Wilmerding.
Good evening, John Wilmerding, 2nd District. I have 3 brief announcements. This is Nina, and she's a special guest at your meeting tonight. Nina is here representing the work, the opus of work really, of Brattleboro artist William Hayes, who this past week closed his William Hayes studio, moved the display of his art into Gallery in the Woods, and he held a sale of many of his best paintings, oils, and watercolors. This is Nina, who is one of his series of portraits of local people, notable people in Brattleboro, and this is a fairly well-known series of portraits. Nina will be on display beginning this Friday at Gallery Walk for a month in the window of the new Angel Boy Gallery, which is down across from Platt Street on Main Street, next to Shinla Restaurant, along with at least one other of his notable portraits of public people. And I think this represents both William's keen observation of people in Brattleboro, having had his studio open on Main Street for nearly 25 years. He had a knack for picking people out of the crowd who really have turned out to be outstanding members of our community. Nina was probably 4 years old when he painted this in 2002. Today, she's the bass player for the Snaz. You may or may not know who the Snaz are. They are a high school rock group which recently toured as far as the Southwest and are becoming very successful and promising youth rock group. So this is Nina, and she will be there along with at least one other portrait. And my second announcement is that the Town Finance Committee will be meeting. It will be holding its organizational meeting on the 20th of May at 4 o'clock in this room. And that meeting will be open to the public. It will be warned, and we will be publicizing our agenda well in advance of the legal requirement. It's fairly straightforward. We have to elect a chairman or other officers, and we have to discuss the work of the Finance Committee during the coming year. So you're welcome to come to that. We have 5 members who have been appointed by representative town meeting, and I wanted you all to know that. The third is I'm doing some organizational work on a new festival, which will be called Fantastic Wantastic. It's a local festival. It's a multicultural and arts festival for the fall foliage season between roughly the beginning of September and the middle of October. And the purpose is to consolidate support for what we already do, the amazing plethora of things we do in the arts and culture during that period, and also to seek support for new ventures, to build on what is, during our yearly calendar, probably our economic cash cow, if you know the term. It's a time when Brattleboro merchants do well, when we all notice that there are people all over town appreciating the changing and the coloring of the foliage at that period. It's already a high point for our town, and this festival will seek to help edify that and build upon that as a strong past and current success story. We are looking for board members, people who are active in the various arts disciplines and cultural disciplines, broadly termed. So if you are interested in possibly helping to organize that festival, please get in touch with me. My name is John Wilmerding, and I'm in the phone book. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Mr. Cameron?
Good evening, I'm Paul Cameron, Town Energy Coordinator, and I'd like to announce that Brattleboro Climate Protection and the Brattleboro Energy Committee are working with 5 local solar companies to launch a campaign called Brattleboro Solar Summer. Our goal is for at least 100 Brattleboro residents to install solar electric systems on their homes or businesses, or purchase shares in a community solar project during the campaign period, which is May 1st to September 30th, 2015. The participating solar companies are offering a discount ranging from $50 to $200 per kilowatt, depending on the number of people who sign up. We're having a kickoff event this coming Saturday, May 2nd, from 1 to 4 p.m. in the Brooks House lobby. We encourage everyone to come out. There will be live music, refreshments, and the chance to meet and talk with the 5 participating solar installers. There will also be a free solar workshop on Monday, June 8th at 5:30 p.m. at the Marlboro College Graduate School. So I encourage folks to come to that to learn more about the advantages of solar. And finally, I'd like to offer a resolution to the board for the board to consider in support of the Brattleboro Solar Summer campaign. And I'll read the resolution. Whereas the town of Brattleboro supports the expansion of clean, renewable energy and the jobs that result from this expansion, and whereas Brattleboro residents and businesses can reduce or eliminate their electricity bills by installing solar electric systems or purchasing shares in a community solar project, and whereas the cost of solar panels has dropped dramatically over the last several years, and a wide range of financing options now makes solar an affordable option for most homeowners, and whereas the Brattleboro Solar Summer campaign supports homeowners, business owners, landlords, and renters in choosing locally generated solar power by offering information and a discount from participating solar installers. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the town of Brattleboro supports the Brattleboro Solar Summer campaign to be held from May 1st to September 30th, 2015, and encourages residents to consider going solar during this period. So thanks for your consideration of this resolution.
We need a motion to approve the resolution.
If that's the way you want to proceed, sure.
I move that we approve the resolution as read.
Is there any comment or any discussion from anybody? John?
John Wilmerding, now speaking as a member of the Finance Committee going into my 5th year, I spearheaded the Finance Committee's consideration of solar projects during that period, commented extensively on the wisdom of certain features of different projects. I'm very heartened to hear this, and I would provide an endorsement, not from the Finance Committee because I can't speak for them, but from a group I pulled together online called the Campaign for Community Solar. Thank you.
Anything further? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. Anybody else in public participation? Hearing none. Next matter on the agenda is convening as liquor commissioners. Do we have a motion to convene as liquor commissioners?
So moved.
We have a motion to convene as liquor commissioners. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. The first matter on the liquor commissioner's agenda is a request for a special event permit for Hermit Thrush Brewery. Is there anybody here from Hermit Thrush Brewery to speak to this request for a special event permit? Well, what I'll note is that one of the owners of Hermit Thrush Brewery is getting married and he needs a permit for his wedding.
Well, I think
Strange as that may seem.
I think we should talk about that.
I move to approve the special event permit for Hermit Thrush Brewery to host a private brewmaster's wedding welcome party on Friday, May 29. Is there any discussion?
Oh, yes, there is. No, I have none.
Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0.
Congratulations.
Yes. Good luck on your wedding, sir. The next matter on the agenda is a request for an outside consumption permit for Delta Pie LLC doing business as Ramunto's Brick Oven Pizza. Is there anybody here to speak to that matter? Great. Would you like to come to the table and get a little bit of free advertising for your business? Come on, go for it.
That doesn't hurt over here.
Yeah. You get a minute of free advertising. Tell us about Ramunto's, please, and why you want an outside consumption permit.
All right, my name is Paul Redding. I'm from Ramunto's, a manager there. The outside consumption for the liquor license would be a huge asset for our business. You know, where we're located at exit 3 of the roundabout with the traffic, about 29,000 cars a day roughly, and people going by to see, you know, outside drinking and ice cream now that we have Emac and Bolio set up would be a great, you know, asset to our business. It'll be a self-serve. People go inside. They could buy an alcohol beverage, go outside, sit at 3 tables, roughly 12 seats, no more than that. And I think it's a great addition to what we're looking to do down there. So, thank you.
Peter, if you can just speak briefly to what approvals and reviews were done.
Sure, it's been reviewed by staff, in particular the police department and fire department, regarding both the intended use and the layout of the tables on the deck, and it's ready for your approval this evening.
Excellent. Is there any further discussion or comment or questions from anybody on the board or anybody who's in attendance? Hearing none, we're ready for a motion.
I move we approve an outside consumption permit for Delta Pie LLC doing business as Ramunto's Brick Oven Pizza of Brattleboro.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. Thanks for coming.
All right,
Good luck.
thank you very much. Appreciate it, guys.
All right.
All right, I gotta go back and speak.
You could have brought next time.
That would have gone a long way.
Next matter on the agenda for liquor commissioners is a request for a special event permit for Whetstone Cider Works LLC, which is planning to have it's planning to offer, I guess, hard cider at the Night of the Ukulele fundraiser at the Open Music Collective at the Hooker Dunham Theater on May 30, 2015. Is there anybody here from the Night of the Ukulele Festival?
I can speak to it.
All right,
a little
Dave,
bit
why don't
in
you
terms
speak
of
to
the,
it?
the
You play
open-
ukulele?
As a matter of fact, I do, and I think if everyone learned to play the ukulele, there would be much less crime. It would be a better world. People like Sid Vicious, well, anyway. So play your ukuleles and come to this event. Nothing like it will ever happen again.
I'm sure.
Is there any further discussion
Night of the
from
ukulele.
anybody on the board or anybody who's in attendance? We're ready for motion. Dave, why don't you make the motion?
Okay.
You know?
I move we approve a special event permit for Whetstone Cider Works LLC for a fundraiser event at the Hooker Dunham Theater on May 30th, 2015.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those, anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0.
Didn't Tiny Tim play the ukulele?
Yes, he
Yes,
did.
he did.
I just
But
wanted
look
to
up-
Dating yourself.
Look up Amanda Palmer's ukulele song and your life will change.
I will.
All right, and then the last item on the Liquor Commissioner's agenda is that it appears Milagros is reopening as of May 1. That would be this coming Friday or thereabouts. And so they want their liquor license back.
Let's give it to him.
So is there any discussion or anybody here from Milagros? So I guess we're ready for a motion on the request by Milagros for their liquor license back.
I move that,
No, go ahead. No, you're right at it.
I'm on it. I move that we approve the renewal of a first-class liquor license for Milagros, Vermont, doing business as Milagros Mexican Restaurant.
Is there any further discussion from anybody on the board or anybody who's in attendance? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. That appears to be the end of our business under Liquor Commissioners. So we're ready for a motion to adjourn as Liquor Commissioners.
So moved.
We have a motion to adjourn as Liquor Commissioners. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. Next matter on our agenda is to convene as Water and Sewer Commissioners. Do we have a motion?
I move that we,
All right, we have a motion to convene as water and sewer commissioners. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, something to water.
Absolutely.
So, is there any discussion? All those in favor of convening as water and sewer commissioners, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining, that carries 5-0. So, the first matter on the water and sewer commissioners is to approve the Clean Water State Revolving Loan Fund loan for building the Black Mountain Gravity Sewer project. So I don't know if that's something John's going to speak to, or if Steve and Hannah are going to speak to, or just the town manager.
I'll speak to it quickly, and then if you want to go into greater detail, then any of the people you named can be helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe.
You have previously approved the award of the contract for this work. You'll recall this is the final project as part of the multi-year effort to upgrade the sewer system, and is a nice project in the sense that it was an opportunity was discovered by staff and the consultant project team to replace a pump station with a additional gravity section of our system at a substantial cost savings. It will cost almost $1 million, however, and this is the borrowing from the state revolving fund in order to pay $985,000 of cost for the project. Importantly, because it's the state revolving fund, it's at 0% interest and with good flexibility in terms of payback. So if we found that it was advantageous to the town during the period of payback to accelerate that, we can do it if we wish.
So
We recommend your approval.
this is something that we've talked about quite a bit.
Yeah.
So,
So, you can move?
Yeah.
I'm going to. If I could only find it. To approve a loan for the Black Mountain Gravity Sewer Main Project from the Vermont Clean Water State Revolving Fund in the amount of $995,000 at 0% interest with 2% administration fee for a term of 20 years.
One difference between this loan and the bonding that we have for the police fire is that this allows for prepayment.
Right.
Although what Mr. Elwell has explained is that part of the reason for the difference may be that this is a 0% loan, so they're happy to get their money back right away.
Exactly.
Whereas the bonds on the police fire, it's a low interest rate, but there's an interest rate, so you don't have the same ability to prepay on those. Mr. O'Connor?
The amount of the bond is $985, not $995.
That's our mistake, John, in the administrative report.
Throw me under the bus.
Okay, so we will take that as a
Friendly.
amendment of the motion, as a friendly amendment of the motion to the amount of $985,000.
Look at that, we just saved 10 grand.
There you go. Welcome back.
Is there any further discussion or inquiry from anybody on the board? Can I ask, when do we anticipate the work beginning? Didn't we award the contract recently?
We did.
You did.
Yes.
Mr. Barrett?
Hopefully before the winter comes in.
Steve Barrett, Director of Public Works. We're actually waiting
For this moment, so that we get our final approval. We have a contractor, the low bidder. We're prepared to sign the notice to proceed tomorrow. So we're all ready to go. The contract is, after we sign the notice to proceed, is 75 days. So we hope and expect that the project will be completed in July.
Excellent. And that's the last piece of the wastewater
That's it.
upgrades,
Last
correct?
piece of the upgrade, yes.
Great. Is there any further discussion or any further inquiry? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the loan from the Vermont Clean Water State Revolving Loan Fund for $985,000, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. And then we have to approve Mr. Elwell as alternate authorized representative to represent the town with respect to the loan and the bond?
That's correct. Yeah, Mr. O'Connor is our primary representative, will continue to be. Patrick Moreland had been the town's alternate during the period of time he was interim town manager, so it's a housekeeping matter to swap me in for Patrick.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve the appointment of Town Manager Peter Elwell as the town's alternate authorized representative for the Black Mountain Road Gravity Sewer Project. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. Is there any other business for Water and Sewer Commissioners? Hearing none. We're ready for a motion to adjourn as Water and Sewer Commissioners. We have a motion to adjourn as Water and Sewer Commissioners. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. We're on to...
Don't forget our interpreters over there are moving like, I feel the wind. I'm just watching you from this angle. They're moving like little rats over there.
Only on the administrative motions in the middle. So, we're pleased to be able to bring back to the table our work with respect to property assessed clean energy program. The town has done quite a bit of work on the program documents in an effort to reach a point where we can present them hopefully for approval. And so I'm pleased under unfinished business to call the item Property Assessed Clean Energy Program. And should I call on Mr. Moreland?
Yes, please.
I call on Mr. Moreland.
Okay, if it's all the same with you, if any of the members of the
About all
Energy
of them?
Committee or all of them would like to join me over here.
Come get on TV. It's a good excuse.
So, good evening. I think David sort of touched on really the main point. In stark contrast to the last 5 times the board has taken this matter up, we're here this evening unified in our recommendation that the board adopt the PACE program as revised and as presented in the board packet. As I'm sure far too many people will recall, for the last, let's say, 2 years since the PACE district was created by representative town meeting in 2013, there have been some concerns, principally within the finance department and then with town legal counsel on the structure of the PACE program. Concerns that, admittedly have changed over that period of time as our relationship with VEIC has changed. But there was a point in time a little more than a year ago where it seemed that the stance between the town of Brattleboro and VEIC, or Vermont Energy Investment Corporation, was one where if the town wanted to do it differently than it was originally proposed, then the town could do its own program. That didn't seem like a feasible solution given the amount of work that would be required. So we continue to work on developing solutions to the problems. What I can say is that most recently, a group of us, myself, John O'Connor, and Bob Fisher, traveled up to Burlington to meet with the folks at VEIC, and we're very impressed with the people that we met with.
Will you say what is VEIC?
Yeah, that's the Vermont Energy Investment Corporation.
Thank you.
We had proposed some alternate language that Bob had written up and sent it up to them about a week ahead of our visit with the idea that let's just commit everything and let's go up there and let's be prepared to say that we gave it our all, and if we weren't able to successfully negotiate a conclusion, then we tried. Thankfully, Mark Kelly, their new program manager, was very in every way seemed to indicate that the concerns we were expressing were legitimate, and that the solutions we were proposing were reasonable in his mind, and that, in fact, similar concerns had been raised by other municipalities, and he was thinking that the language that we had proposed for adoption would be language that might help solve similar concerns in other Vermont municipalities. I think we were all very impressed with him and his willingness to meet with us and review the language. At the conclusion of that meeting, he was going to pass that to their council and see that VEIC's council was approving of the contract changes. The attorney reviewed the documents, and we quickly met agreement. And so we're here before you this evening to recommend that the Select Board adopt the program as revised. Now, I would draw your attention to a couple of points. One of which is one of the problems that we had articulated is how can the town issue a tax bill when somebody fails to repay a loan to VEIC? This was a sort of a legal issue that Bob had some challenges with. What he rather elegantly proposed to VEIC is that in the event that somebody who has received a PACE loan defaults on that loan, they would, after 90 days, turn that over to the town. At that point, the town would issue a bill for that sum of money, and at the end of 30 days, once that is not paid, then the town has some debt with which to issue, or rather, some debt with which to collect. So it was a fairly simple solution to what had been a sort of a nagging problem, and one that VEIC was very comfortable with. And the second issue that I'd bring up that was resolved at that meeting addressed some concerns that town staff had regarding the town certifying that there were no liens against a particular property. That's not something town staff do. We certainly maintain the town land records, but we don't certify that certain things are in fact true. That's what people hire attorneys for. And so working with VEIC, we were able to come up with some documentation for self-certification that the property owner would provide. And in the end, that seemed to satisfy VEIC. It satisfied Attorney Fisher. And so I guess we're here tonight just to say that the differences have been resolved, and we recommend you adopt the program.
Anybody on the board have any questions or comments?
I just want to
Okay.
ask one question, even though it's written here, I'm going to ask it anyway. The town is not putting any money into this, correct? We're not incurring any, like it says here, the cost of PACE.
No, there's no financial contribution to this. I mean, you could certainly say our time in going up there to meet with VEIC is one manner of expense, but no, we're not putting cash into this.
And that's actually mandated by the legislation that created this, that only the people that participate in the project incur the cost.
So the only question I have, because this has been coming up before us quite a bit in the last couple of years, did VEIC adopt any of the the concerns that we had down here? I mean, did they look at them and say, wow, that was, we never looked into it, and I'm glad somebody brought it up, or were we just being pig-headed and trying to get our way? But it seems like a lot of them were viable. I mean, they were,
I would say VEIC validated our concerns.
Right.
And I would just like to commend Mark Kelly, their new program manager, who was very sympathetic to our concerns and helped us work through them. And so at this point in time, we're in agreement.
And so I'll just note, having gone through all of these program documents, that essentially what's now set up, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we really should have an overview here about what's going to happen. There's a fund established with money that doesn't come from the town of Brattleboro, which will be available for loans for energy efficiency upgrades in private residences. I think the range of loan money is from like $2,500 to $20,000, if I recall, or in that range in these materials. And the town's responsibility as the sponsor of the program for vetting applications, for running credit checks, for making sure that everything is done right, is being delegated to Efficiency Vermont or Burlington Electric Department, but I don't think Burlington Electric Department operates here. So Efficiency Vermont is going to be acting as the agent, setting up the loan documents and making the loans. And the first time the town would ever get involved, including with respect to dispersing of money and repayment, is after, I think it's 90 days of a debtor to pay back their monthly payment that's due on the loan. The town would then become involved as the taxing entity, and we would issue a tax bill, and then we would roll that collection process into our tax sale process as a whole, and whatever expenses we would incur, for example, administrative costs and the costs of running the tax sale as to these individual debts would be paid back to us through the penalties and administrative costs that are ordinarily paid as part of the tax sale process. So essentially, the loans are all going to happen without our involvement, but then if collection is necessary, it'll be drawn within our tax sale system, and whatever costs we would incur will be paid by the party that borrowed the money in the tax sale process. Did I get that right?
Yep.
Excellent. Mr. Humphries.
Yeah, Lester Humphries, Chair of the Energy Committee. Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And the Energy Committee is very excited about this program. Many people want to weatherize, do energy improvements on their house, but there have been hurdles in the way. And a program administered by Efficiency Vermont, which has a good track record in helping people, I think it will be a big benefit for the town. The work is then done by private contractors in the area, and so we see this as helping jobs, helping the town, and the loans are going to be either at no interest or low interest or competitive interest depending on the income levels of the participants. So we've been waiting for these hurdles, these challenges to be overcome on the legal side, and I want to thank the managers for taking the initiative and Bob Fisher for taking the initiative to drive and meet there and hash these out. And I think it was a very productive meeting, and I think VEIC, which is the parent company of Efficiency Vermont, was very grateful that you guys did meet with them and solve these issues that'll help other towns as well.
Lester, is there a certain amount of money that they have available? I mean, is there a cap or?
Yeah, they've got I think it's about $1 million to start.
Okay.
And
then that'll just increase with what's
as it continues, they'll be looking for more. And like I said, it's tiered based on income levels, starting at no
And that's
interest.
through the state of Vermont. There's 1 million available for.
No, the money was raised from private sources.
Oh, okay.
And I think some grant sources to help with the income.
But that million covers the whole state of Vermont.
The whole state of Vermont, yes.
Okay.
Any further discussion or inquiry or comment?
I'd just like to support what Lester said. Thanks to everybody that finally sorted through this and got it done. I hope I'm the first person to sign up, and I'm going to see Paul right after the meeting and get it underway. Actually, I wait till May 1st, so I can be part of the new project.
Any further comments?
I'd like to thank the town and Patrick for being persistent in working out these issues, and I think it will be a benefit to other towns in the state, and it'll hopefully be a big benefit to folks here in town who want to do energy projects in their homes, and could end up saving people a lot of money and improving our housing stock and have a lot of benefits. So I really appreciate your efforts.
Any further comments, questions? We're ready for a motion.
David, you should make it.
I've talked enough about this book.
I would love to move this one. I move to adopt the Property Assessed Clean Energy Program as revised and to authorize the town manager to execute the associated documents.
Is there any further discussion? Thank you. Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. That being the end of unfinished business, although there's always unfinished business, we'll now move to new business. And the first item on the new business agenda is the net metering contract. Patrick?
Yes, David. So just to be clear, what we're asking the board to do is to authorize the town manager to execute an amendment to our existing net metering agreement with Next Sun. And the reason for that is a couple of fold, but principally one of the things we would like to draw your attention to is it's been a series of analysis of this particular amendment. And one of the things we'd like to indicate is that we see it as more favorable to the town in terms of cost savings on our energy bills. So there is an analysis, and it was prepared by Lester Humphreys to my right. It was included in the packet, and one of the things you can show by taking a look at that, there's a lot of assumptions in this, and I'll sort of get back to that in a moment, but one of the things you can see is over a 20-year lifespan of the agreement, this particular amendment would provide roughly $250,000 by this estimate in additional benefit or in additional savings to the town over the life of the agreement. How we got to this point, I'll try and summarize as best I can in the next few moments. Back in 2013, by means of a competitive bidding process, Brattleboro engaged Green Lantern Capital in a net metering project for the town of Brattleboro. It's a 500 kilowatt system, and originally it was intended to be between town of Brattleboro, Green Lantern Capital, and a local company here in Brattleboro. In the end, it was only Green Lantern Capital, and that system struggled a little bit to obtain its permits and to find a proper location where it could get built. For a while, it was going to be built up in Townsend. At some point, it was going to be built in a few other places around Windham County. Ultimately, they settled in Westminster. As time moved on, later in April of 2014, the Select Board, after having discussed the possibility of entering into new agreements for net metering projects, instructed the town manager's office to work with the Energy Committee around potentially developing an RFP for additional projects. Not long thereafter, some changes in legislation allowed for a project to occur at Windham Solid Waste atop the old landfill. And between conversations between myself and several members of the Energy Committee, it was pretty apparent that a successful project at that location might potentially benefit the town on a number of fronts. One, in terms of the potential for a large-scale net metering project could provide very competitive pricing, but then also a more financially healthy solid waste district would be one that, all things being equal, might be able to reduce its assessment to the town. So, you know, we sort of sat and allowed that project to take hold and monitored it, and it has been moving forward, as you well know. Right about that same time, Green Lantern approached the town and indicated that additional changes in the legislation allowed for additional output to come from a 500 kilowatt system. The town had originally estimated that they'd receive 690,000 kilowatt hours, and an opportunity was available to the town to now garner 800,000 in kilowatt hours from the system we had already developed an agreement for. We moved forward with this, and then in addition to that, not long thereafter, we began, not long thereafter, all of the agreements that Green Lantern Capital had developed, both with the town of Brattleboro and with other customers, were then sold to Next Sun. They were assigned, which was allowed in the contract. Next Sun approached the town early in 2015 to indicate that there was discombobulation between many of the agreements and how they would work together that they had purchased from Green Lantern. They asked the town if we would be willing to restructure our agreement, and that restructured agreement is presented to you as the amendment this evening. It is considered more favorable to the town financially, and it restructures our allocation of energy from two different solar array projects in a manner that solves some problems for them with their other contracts. So it solve certain problems for Next Sun in terms of how their contracts work together between themselves and their various customers, and provides the town of Brattleboro with a more favorable financial outcome through this amendment. Is that?
I'd like to just
Would you
add,
like to concur? Anything you'd like to offer?
No, I think that covers it.
A little crude, but
one quick clarification, and Lester, please amplify this if you wish, but your assistance in our review of this was really helpful, and I want to point out that the sheet that's in your backup that relates to the projected savings is one of many scenarios that Lester ran, and it could turn out any number of different ways depending on how the cost of energy actually increases or decreases in the future. So it's a conservative estimate at 2% increase over the years. Very likely there will be years when the cost of energy is increasing higher than that, and the savings will even be greater to the town. There is, of course, the possibility that cost of energy could go down and the savings might be less, but we thought it was the 2% option was a reasonable, prudent way to represent what we think is going to happen. The amount of research that went into getting to that conclusion was actually pretty exhaustive, and involved not only a lot of work that Lester did on his own outside of meetings, but multiple meetings with Patrick, and at least one that I also attended with you, and it was really helpful to us.
Yeah, that 2% is specifically the cost of electricity from Green Mountain Power, and it's these formulas and these contracts are complicated enough so that, you know, it made it necessary to run a spreadsheet and look at all the different scenarios. But we're confident that that this is going to be a good deal for the town. And as before, there's no chance that the town could end up paying more than the credits. And then I think you also talked to the contractor that was working on the landfill, and he concurred with the conclusion that this was a good deal for the town.
In working with...
Wait. Before you start that, sure. Can you explain what you mean when you say there's no way the town could wind up paying more than the credits? Did I repeat that accurately?
Yes.
Can you translate it into English, please?
Okay. The credits come to the town based on the amount of electricity generated by the solar system. And then there's a formula by which the town pays the, in this case, Next Sun, a percentage of those credits. And that percentage is always smaller than the credit, than than what's generated. So, that make sense?
We're always gonna be paying less than the money that's coming,
Right.
than what's generated.
Patrick, you were gonna, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Not a problem. As the Waste District was considering how best to develop a solar project for their landfill, they invited the town to participate in that process in reviewing proposals that were put forward to the district. I attended, on behalf of the town, interviews with each of the 5 finalists for that particular project, and I think one of the things that the district did very well in that process was to hire a consultant from a firm out of Ohio named Hull. And the gentleman's name was Steve Giles, and he's a professional in this particular industry, and he helped them to work through in terms of developing their RFP and helped them to analyze the responses that came back to it. Very nice man, very knowledgeable, and taught me, and I'm pretty sure everybody else at the district, quite a bit about the way net metering credits work. I took the opportunity in discussions with the district. I asked them, do you guys still have access to him? And they said yes, and in fact, if you need him to do something, by all means, ask him to do. And so I sent this contract amendment to him and asked him to take a look at it, and he found it to be far more favorable than the existing agreement. And so that's what Lester was referring to. And by the way, the district provided his services to us without any charge, which was nice.
So I'm naturally skeptical, and I'm wondering, why is it then that we're getting a proposal to amend this contract to save us more money, if you know?
It appears that Green Lantern, that was in charge of this, setting up the systems and doing all the permitting and everything, promised to the systems to contractually to more than one town or one group, and so Nexon needs to clean that up because there wasn't consistency among all the contracts to specific systems, and so they found themselves in a position where they needed to make changes, and I think that was part of it. I think also they're looking to develop a relationship in Vermont, Nexon, and so I think they wanted to reach out to the town and say, you know, here's an opportunity to help you out and you know, give a good impression. You agree with that?
Yeah.
They didn't get off to when the contracts were assigned, the Green Lantern, as for the school districts, was one of them as well, and it didn't get off to a great start with Nexon. So I'm not surprised that they're working much more effectively with the school district now than initially, and I'm not surprised that they would be trying to patch that up.
Yeah, there was some friction, I think, that Green Lantern
Yeah.
had with particularly the school district, and I think Nexon, in taking over those contracts, is making an effort to clean those things up.
Lester, can you answer me one, just real quickly, and I don't know if this really pertains to this or not, but the electric companies have an infrastructure
Yeah,
that they have to maintain.
yeah.
And so the more people that go on net metering or solar, or at some point, I mean, are they going to fight back a little bit and start upping rates? Because they have to keep that infrastructure alive and they have to maintain it. So that.
Yeah, I understand.
You know the question?
I understand the question. Net metering legislation is done at the state level, in the state legislation, and they have worked with Green Mountain Power, and they've set limits on how many of these projects can be done.
Right.
And the reason for those limits is so that they don't grow to the point where you run into the problem you're having. Initially, it's beneficial to Green Mountain Power, and they were actually doing it voluntarily before the legislation, because This power comes at peak solar times, which coincides with air conditioning and other needs and business times at noon, middle of the day, in the heart of the day. And so by not having to build new plants or find new, more expensive power, this is beneficial. And Green Mountain Power is actually seeking these systems out voluntarily. And the legislature has then come forward and formalized it. And but there is a limit.
I was just going to say, at
Yeah.
some point, the scale's going to tip.
At some point, you start running into issues of is the power coming at the right time, and how do you close down other plants and stuff like that. And so then, once this present pool is used up, there's going to be discussions about how to do that. Now, Green Power is running a pilot program in Rutland of how to do that, how to have the grid be smarter and be able to use the power more effectively, because there is a long-term goal to have solar and other renewables as a bigger and bigger part of our portfolio. But there's technical challenges for sure. But in the meantime, this is something that Green Mountain Power has embraced, and it's actually helping rates not.
Good.
So it sounds as though, and this is a question directed to the town manager at this point, you've also had a chance to review this work product and this proposal, and based upon the recommendation from the assistant town manager and the energy committee and your independent analysis, it's your conclusion that this contract amendment will benefit the town in terms of energy cost savings over the life of the amendment?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Any further discussion? Or comments or questions? We're ready for motion.
I move that we authorize the town manager to execute the second amendment to the town's net metering agreement with Next Sun Energy Rutland LLC.
Is there any discussion? Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. Thanks all for your work. That's great. Next matter on the agenda is the financial report. Mr. O'Connor.
Thank you, David. It's been a long time, buddy.
Yep. So in the packet is the March financial report. Through the month of March, we're 75% of the way through the fiscal year. General fund expenditures year-to-date through March were 77.7% of the budget, so a little over the 75% target. However, included in those expenditures is $549,987 in unbudgeted transfers to other funds. There's $1,202,113 in debt service payments. There's $544,313 in insurance payments, and there's $130,765 in human service payments. So if we exclude the unbudgeted transfers and we prorate the other three items, we would be at 71.3% of our budget, so well below the 75% target. Utilities fund was at 73.8%. Parking expenditures were 75.6%. And the police fire fund, basically, we're not seeing any change in that fund at this point. There's $13,412 that's been spent this fiscal year. The loan report shows that we have $4,060,716 in outstanding loans. One of the loans had payments that were overdue, and 2 loans were in default, but they were, again, fully reserved. Program income report shows that we have $449,357 in available funds for additional grants and loans. And finally, the grant report shows that we have 44 active grants and 15 grants in the application process as of the end of March. So unless you have any specific questions that you have on budgets or any of the other reports, that really is my report this evening. And if you do have questions, I'll certainly try to answer them for you.
Yeah, and I have a question too. David, you go first.
Yeah, John, again, in my ongoing effort to understand how this works, would you mind describing why we make unbudgeted transfers to other funds and what the other funds are?
Yep, I can explain that.
Thank you.
Representative town meeting authorized us to transfer $485,000 to the capital fund, okay? So that's part of it. 20,000 they authorized us to transfer 20,000 to the skate park fund, and so that's part of it as well. And then the last piece is the Cook Road Bridge, and as part of one of our Tropical Storm Irene projects. The federal portion of that came in less than the normal 90%. And so we had to come up with a difference for that bridge, and that's what that was, $44,987.
Great, thank you.
The town meeting authorization for the skate park and the other money that might be spent out of the surplus, wasn't it for next year? And so why does it show up or how does that work?
It came out of the fund balance from the end of fiscal year 14. So we can make that transfer in fiscal year 15.
Okay, that's my question.
And should, because we're going to use a portion of it to pay for the Union Hill, Western Avenue intersection improvements, and some of those costs will be incurring this fiscal year.
And so I've wondered about that while we've been talking about where the money is coming from, for example, for Union Hill. And so am I to understand then that although we adopted the FY16 budget at town meeting, the authorization from town meeting to spend the money from the undesignated unreserved fund was immediate authority to spend that money even in FY15?
That's my understanding, because it was out of the fiscal year 14 year-end balance.
Excellent. Well, that helps clarify something I had been wondering about. So I guess I have one looking forward question, and well, there are two looking forward questions. The first question I have, I'm looking at Mr. Barrett, because going through all of the department budgets, the only one that shows any significant variance in terms of percentage of funds that's been expended is Public Works. And on their $1.5 million total budget, which is not utilities, but just the portion that's in the operating budget, they're already at 85% at 3/4 of the year. So are we anticipating cost overruns in Public Works? Are we going to be finding that money other places in the Public Works budget, other places in the overall budget? So that's one question. And then the second question I have is whether, barring anything that's way unforeseen, do we have any sense now, 3/4 of the way through the year, whether we're likely to be running a surplus, and if so, potentially what kind of surplus?
I'll speak to the first and briefly to the second. John can go into more detail in a second. I want to speak to the first rather than making Steve come up and say this for himself.
He's fine with it.
I'm not chastising anybody. I just want to know. Well, it was a terrible winter.
It was a terrible winter, and that's the story. So, DPW did what DPW needed to do, and it was no more fun for them to be out doing it as much as they had to do it this winter than it is for us to look at the numbers. But that's what is causing the Public Works budget to look as though it's not being managed as tightly as the other departments. In fact, outside of the impact of this winter, DPW is doing an excellent job as well. So we're in good financial shape in terms of how all the different department heads and their staffs are using the resources we have wisely to do the things we need to do this year. Which then feathers with your observation, even notwithstanding the fact that we do expect to go over the Public Works budget because of the winter expenses, we do still expect to end the year not so much with a surplus, because you'll recall that this particular budget was approved with a $200,000 deficit. expectation, but we will finish the year. We do expect to finish the year, barring something unforeseen, in a better position than budgeted. If you want more detail on that, John can provide it.
And the only exception to that is with the exception of those unbudgeted transfers.
Right.
So, Peter, was it more, back to DPW, was it more material or was it more overtime?
Both.
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 It was both.
Yep.
They did a hell of a job.
Yep.
I gotta say. Did a heck of a job. Yep. That was a tough winter.
Anything else from anybody on the board? Any other questions about financial report? Mr. O'Connor, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The next matter on the agenda
That's left to go.
is the local emergency operations plan. I see the chief and assistant fire chief stepping up to the table.
Good night, John. Are you just spilling them on the...
Just,
We'll just call on the two of you to explain this issue, please.
So we come before you tonight to ask you to adopt the 2015 Emergency Operations Plan. The main document is in your packet. Each year, as you know, all Vermont municipalities are required to have an operations plan to be eligible for certain funding and grants. The Emergency Relief and Assistance Funding grant, and as well as many state and federal grant requirements. This is one of the requirements we need to meet. The document contains a variety of resources that we would refer to in a large emergency, different contacts that we need, where we can get certain heavy equipment, things that we don't use on a daily basis, as well as incident command forms that we would use to track resources and things such as that. There's several amendments or addendums that go with the plan. Just to name a couple, the Town and School Crisis Emergency Response Plan is actually part of this. The Hazard Mitigation Plan and the Pleasant Valley Dam Flood Plan are all part of this plan. Some of the new information that's gone into it this year is the state is now pushing hard for municipalities to be able to handle pets during an evacuation. We need to have an animal crisis plan, if you will. Kathy Burrows, the animal control officer, has been working hard with the Humane Society and some other volunteer folks. That effort is underway, and a skeleton plan of that is also in here. Another new initiative that's available to us now is the Southeastern Vermont Medical Reserve Corps. They are led by Pam Corbett from the Health Department, and it's a resource that we can call on, again, in a large emergency. It's a group of volunteers that helps with emergency preparedness, and they're prepared for and respond to large local emergencies upon the request of the municipality. And the third one is that we have, with the help of the Westgate Association, created an emergency access plan to get into Westgate if during flooding or ice jams we happen to lose that bridge on Westgate Drive, so we can get emergency vehicles in there if the bridge is out for an extended period of time. The work on this document certainly has been a collaborative effort on the part of many departments, and certainly the folks sitting in the back row there have had their hands in it. So this is the work of all of the departments. And if you adopt the plan tonight, the town manager that can then sign off on it, verifying your adoption, and I'll submit it to Wyndham Regional and to the state for filing, and we'll be done with it for another year. And certainly, if you want to see any of the extra addendums or things, just get a hold of me. Those are on file. We would just have to kill another 200 trees to put them in this tonight.
So Mike, for the most part, this almost stays the same from year to year.
It does. We just,
Unless you have the state get involved in.
for the most part, it does. We'll update it. There's a continuance of government form that's in it that we update every year.
Right.
If different initiatives, like some of the ones I've mentioned, come along, we'll add them. But basically, we go through it and just update all of the material and double check with all of our resources and our contacts and just make sure those are all right.
I did get the sense as I was reading through it that I had read it through 2 or 3 or 4 times
Oh,
before.
yeah.
So
I know.
I wonder whether there's a way going forward to present us with a summary of the changes
Just the changes.
along with the document, because when there's new board members, if that happens sometime,
Can't see in the future.
they should read it through, but I sort of felt like I was reading the same thing.
It pretty much is from last
I
year.
think I probably was. I want to ask a question, though, if I might. I was interviewed by an interested high school student recently who's got the same last name as me, and that was then apparently repeated over by many of his classmates. I had been asked, what is the town's role in planning for medical emergencies, like a outbreak of disease of some sort? And I found myself at a loss to say what steps the town has taken to plan for that sort of an emergency event. And then apparently I was quoted as saying, the town's done nothing to prepare for a mass medical emergency.
But doesn't this
So,
fall under it a little?
well, but I read through this thing to
Right.
see whether I had gotten it right, and I didn't see any particular steps that we've got for planning for a mass medical emergency. There's planning in here for how do you get emergency medical personnel if there's a flood or a windstorm or fire.
Right.
So maybe you could tell us what steps, if any, we've taken. It may be that that's all planned for at the state level, but is there any town-type planning for a mass medical emergency?
There is, and you're right. For some reason, I have missed it in this plan. I can touch on it, and then I'll let Pete speak to it as a health officer, but going back a few years ago, you'll remember the H1N1 scare. We worked closely, and we had a response plan, as we do for Ebola, that we worked very closely with the health department and Rescue Inc. To respond to and react to anything that may come about locally to that magnitude. As the health officer, Pete would certainly play a big role in it, and I don't know if you have more to add to that.
We've developed a lot of relationships that will help us in the future, but I think you hit it in a nutshell.
All right.
It certainly should be something that we get into this plan.
Yeah, and
Good point.
I would almost think the state would be the first one to intervene on that. And
They would be the lead, definitely.
they would definitely be the lead.
But we would have some role, I would imagine,
Oh, yeah.
in
But I wonder if they would
disseminating
dictate.
information, right?
Right.
So a system in place to get health precautions, information out to all the residents of Brattleboro.
do something about an Ebola truck. I heard, and I'd never heard of it, but my kid seems to think that we have an Ebola truck here in town.
It's a tracked vehicle.
I don't know what it is, but that's what they thought.
There is.
There is?
Yes. One of Rescue Inc.'s ambulances that they were getting ready to trade in, they actually stripped down, and it was prepared to transport a patient that was suspected of having Ebola.
Really?
Yeah, that was part of our plan.
So there we go. We do have an Ebola truck in
We've
Brattleboro.
got an Ebola truck.
All right. Any further questions or comments?
It should be noted that we spend a great deal of time looking at the what-ifs and how we would prepare. And the nice thing about the community as it is we've developed a lot of partnerships and relationships with folks throughout Brattleboro and the community at large that in the event of an emergency will really allow us to move forward quickly and to solve problems that we might not ordinarily have thought of in a planning process.
Sort of mention that the superintendent of schools has, on any number of public occasions, talked about how pleasant, how effective it's been working with you and with the police department over various emergency planning and planning different scenarios. So it's really paying off. You know, really
There's one that's paid off big time.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. We spoke about this about 6 or 8 weeks ago when somebody went into one of the schools, and there was just an amazing level of coordination from all local law enforcement agencies that allowed there to be a prompt response that made sure that the kids were safe inside the school and that the threat was dealt with in a very effective manner.
Even the people running the program, the Aspire program, knew exactly what to do and acted properly right off the bat.
And the kids never knew that anything was going on. It was integrated into the curriculum, actually. Oh, this is what policemen do. I think we're ready for motion unless there's any further discussion. We're ready for motion.
I move to adopt the 2015 Local Emergency Operations Plan, LOEP, as presented.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. It has been suggested by the town manager that we try to move through the grants in as effective manner as possible.
That's a nice way of putting it.
So I'm gonna suggest that the town manager make a suggestion about how we might effectively move through these grants.
Sure. I know it's important for the public to know what each grant represents, so we've tried to make that clear in the abbreviated statements that are in the administrative report. Because most of these are small dollar amounts, they're found money, they're serving important public purposes, but not great matters of public policy. I think it's just, it'd be efficient for the conduct of the more substantial business of the evening to read each one quickly and then have you act on it without asking for a presentation on each one. If you have a question about any of them, of course, we'll pause long enough to provide whatever additional information you might need.
So, unless there's some objection to proceeding that way, the next matter on the agenda is to accept and appropriate the sum of $7,667.70 from the Vermont Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security for a special operations training grant. Does anybody have any questions about accepting, about the potential to accept $7,667.70 for that purpose?
No.
Ready for motion? We have a motion to accept $7,667.70 from Vermont Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security for operations training grant. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0.
So David, can I ask a question?
Sir.
I thought we were going to do this in a different way, but maybe I was misunderstanding it. I thought we were just going to have one person read all the grants and then approve them as a whole.
We can do them together. All right.
If you'd like to do.
Well, it
would go a little quicker.
I think it just goes a little quicker, and
We can take
again,
turns
this is,
reading.
I appreciate the fact that we're telling everybody about what the grants are. This is money that's coming to us, which is a good thing, So, unless, but I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page, that,
So we can vote in one clump?
I think we can vote in a cluster.
If you properly describe
Right.
each one, so it's basically one motion that would incorporate the language of the next
5 or whatever
four.
it
It
is.
would have been 5, but now it would be the next 4 items.
Sure, let's do it.
I think actually it's the next 3, because the one on page 4 of the memo is approving applications.
So it's E, F, and G.
Fair enough, yes.
All right?
Yep.
So,
Oh, well, excuse me, but G is also an application, but it's an application for a small amount of a grant that we routinely receive, that we just get told when it's time to put in the new application.
all right. Well, we're going to do E and F now. So, I move to approve the following 2 grants. First, 2015 DUI enforcement grant amendment, and to accept and appropriate $3,600 from the Vermont Agency of Transportation for enforcement activities directly related to DUI and impaired driving, and to approve the 2015 OP enforcement grant amendment, and to accept and appropriate $4,800 from the Vermont Agency of Transportation for enforcement activities directly related to speeding, seatbelt use, and aggressive and distracted driving. Is there any discussion about any of that? That's a motion to accept and approve those grants. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0.
So you could have read G, right? Or
No, because G is to approve an application.
Yeah, we're not approving the grant.
So, somebody want to read the next 4 together to approve the applications, that will take questions together?
Yeah. Wait, you want
No,
to?
go ahead. No,
Okay.
no.
The first is Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant.
Yeah, that's where we'll start.
This is to approve the application for $2,097 for Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant from the Bureau of Justice Assistance to pay for bulletproof vests. And to approve the application for a Town Highway Class 2 roadway program grant from the Vermont Agency of Transportation in the amount of $89,660 for the Old Guilford Road paving project. To approve application for a Town Highway Class 2 roadway program grant from the Vermont Agency of Transportation in the amount of $95,230 for the Greenleaf Street paving project. To approve the application for a $4,000 Better Back Roads Category A grant from the Vermont Agency of Transportation.
That's it. All right, so we have a motion to approve 4 grant applications. One to the Bureau of Justice Assistance and 3 to AOT. Does anybody have any questions about those 4 applications? I have a question. I do not recall in the past seeing these types of big applications to AOT to pave big chunks of specific roads. Maybe they've come through in the past and I just don't remember them, but if you could just speak briefly to this procedure.
Probably the reason for that, we have done these before, and probably the reason for that is during your term, we haven't done some Class 2 roadways. Upper Dummerston Road was done in this manner. It's a Class 2 roadway. It took several years. We don't always get money when we go to the pot. So Old Guilford Road, this is an opportunity as a Class 2 roadway. Little different grant. It just it applies to these Class 2 roads, which are considered collector roads from one town to another. So it gives them a special category and special funding.
What's the likelihood that we're going to get some of this money?
I think the likelihood's pretty good. There's 2 separate grants that we're putting in for a reason the max is $175,000. So we're breaking into 2 different separate grants and hoping that may be an opportunity.
If we don't get these grants, are we still going to be looking to pave these roads this year?
Maybe not. We're looking at this as an opportunity to supplement the rest of our paving program with the $300,000 that was approved at town meeting. So this is an opportunity. If not, then we'll back off and maybe seek this next year.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other questions from anybody or comments? So we have a motion to approve 4 grant applications, 1 to Bureau of Justice Assistance and 3 to AOT. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. Thank you. So the next matter on the agenda is to endorse the State of Vermont Department of Transportation Annual Financial Plan for Town Highways. Mr. Barrett.
What I'm asking for is approval for our annual financial plan, which is submitted to the Agency of Transportation within 60 days after the approval of our budget. What this does is it verifies that we spend approximately $300 per mile of roadway, which would only come to $26,000. So we certainly commit that to our roadways. And this becomes a mechanism also for the town to receive funding. The town each year receives state aid, approximately $230,000, I believe it was, in this year, from the state for work on our roadways. So I'm asking for your approval for the financial plan.
Anybody have any questions about the financial plan for our highways? We're ready for a motion.
I move to endorse the State of Vermont Department of Transportation Annual Financial Plan for Town Highways.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. Next matter on the agenda is scheduling 2 public hearings on a proposed amendment to the Brattleboro Town Plan. So, in order to renew the downtown designation for West Brattleboro,
You lost him.
the law has changed, and we need to have specific provisions in the town plan relating to the downtown designation. And so we need to have public hearings and then approval of the amendments to the town plan in order to allow the downtown designation for West Brattleboro to be renewed as of July. So we have public hearings that we're going to schedule for May 19 and June 2nd, which are dates of previously scheduled select board meetings anyway. Did I get that right?
You got that so almost exactly right. Everything was perfect, except in this case, we do have a downtown designation for downtown Brattleboro. The term of art for a commercial center of the type that exists in West Brattleboro is a village center designation.
Okay.
So close.
So village center designation, I'm sorry. So I move to add public hearings to our select board meetings on May 19 and June 2, 2015 to review and discuss proposed amendment to the Brattleboro Town Plan. Any discussion? I guess the one thing I would note is that as I read through it, it says that Building a Better Brattleboro is the designated downtown organization. And I'm pretty sure that it's got a different name, and maybe the name has changed twice since it was called Building a Better Brattleboro. So when they bring it to us for review, Downtown Alliance maybe.
It's now
It is
downtown.
downtown lights.
No,
It
it's
changed
now-
again.
Yeah, it changed again. It's
Oh,
now
really?
downtown Brattleboro
Well,
Alliance.
I'm glad I didn't write it down.
So when this is presented back to us,
Yep.
let's try to fix that name.
We will.
In pencil.
Is there any further discussion?
Sorry.
Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And you have scheduled 2 public hearings for the next 6 weeks. The next one is annual select board assignments. So there is a list of assignments in the book. And here's what you're all assigned to. Kate and I apparently were assigned to the Capital Grants Review Board. Kate, did you know that?
That was last year, you're looking at
Yeah,
last
that's
year.
okay. I didn't know that, because I've
I
never
sort
been.
of vaguely remember it, but
Does the Capital Grants Review Board really
we didn't
function?
do anything.
I can speak to that.
Yes, please.
As
I know traffic safety functions.
No, not the Capital Grants Review Board. There's the small business,
Right, that's it, yeah.
the board that grants small business loans and grants to businesses and nonprofit entities is what's meeting tomorrow. What the Capital Grants Review Board does is look at grants of a significant nature that would be potentially adding future cost to the town. So for instance, and this, I will say, it's been part of my learning curve arriving here, is not explicitly how it's written down. So I think that's an important thing to note for the record, but it is how it has operated in practice for years, if not decades. So it's one of the things I've noted that we probably ought to clean up in terms of the official enabling documentation. We've got a number of those that we've identified, and we'll chip away at them over time. But in the meantime, I'm only addressing with you operational changes where I think operational changes are needed to protect the town. So in this instance, we're not operating exactly how it's written down, but we are operating consistent with the longstanding practice, which is if there's a capital grant that would either add a very large piece of equipment or some part of town infrastructure that's going to have a carrying cost into the future, it's an additional level of review. Besides the staff's work on it, besides the policy decision that would be made by select board or possibly ultimately at a town meeting, there's a capital grants review board that gives input as to whether or not it is in the town's best interests to go for that grant.
Good question. Is there an expense above which it would go to this?
There isn't a threshold. Again, most of what we've been dealing with in the last few months since I've arrived has either been very small amounts or large amounts, but for things like the $300,000 urgent needs grant that we're seeking for the retaining wall at Green Street. You know, clearly it would not be worth everyone's time to gather the Capital Grants Review Board together to talk about whether or not a grant like that is in the town's best interest, because it's not adding to any carrying costs. This is an urgent need that we've got to address. If we get the $300,000, that's unequivocally beneficial to the community. So each time as I've reviewed the forms that you see related to these various grants, I've checked the box not applicable for the Capital Grants Review Board based on our longstanding practices. And when I see one come along that looks to me like there is some fairly debatable point about whether investing in this, whether receiving the grant and investing in the project might actually add a burden to the town that needs that additional level of review, I'll flag that and we'll call for such a meeting before it comes to you.
Kate and David will get called.
Yeah.
There we go.
We got called a lot in the last year.
Right, I don't think I've ever been called for this. I've been called for a lot of other meetings.
I want to get on that committee then.
Feels like 50 or 60, like every week, a little more. So, anybody want to be on the Capital Grants Review Board besides me and Ms. O'Connor?
I think you guys got a handle.
We do a
Yeah,
really good job.
we're doing a good job.
You are.
What about Rental Housing Improvement Program Loan Committee? Do you want to remain on that committee?
I'm interested in traffic safety.
Are you?
I am.
Oh!
Excellent. Excellent. That's great. No, that's good. All right.
I don't know.
Does somebody else want to be on Rental Housing Improvement Program Loan Committee? Well, I'm happy to swap out with Ms. McComber as the Traffic Safety and Rental Housing Improvement Committee. You'll be able to make it?
How
The
long
meetings?
does it meet?
Well, it's like 8 o'clock on Tuesdays, although they're talking about changing it.
We did, just today, we
I couldn't
changed
make
it.
today's meeting.
It'll be 8:30 in the morning on the fourth Thursday of the month. If that's impossible for you, we could certainly look at changing it. I will say that when we did just look at changing it, the vast majority of affected people needed it to remain a morning meeting. I was thinking about moving it to the afternoon, but we need it to be a morning. It doesn't have to be the fourth Thursday.
Okay. Could it be a
Donna is
little
now
early?
taking her name off the...
Could it be earlier than 8:30? Sure.
8 o'clock?
Sure.
It's been 8.
Yeah.
Do you feel fine about letting that one go?
I had no idea. I love change.
He actually,
Works for me.
he actually wanted to sit down here tonight.
Works for me. I was going to sit at the end of the table.
Okay, so fourth Thursday at 8 a.m.
Yes, ma'am.
Great.
Donna, this is big.
Yeah, great.
He's been on it forever.
4 years. That's, like I say, change is good. Small Business Assistance Program. You want to remain on that, Dave? Yes.
And then Solid Waste Management District,
That one too.
you want to remain? And John, you want to remain as the alternate?
Just getting into it.
All right, and then, John, you want to remain as the liaison to police fire?
Yes.
We're all ex officio members of the Civil Authority Board and the Board of Abatement. And we have Wyndham Regional Commission members, rather than it being select board members, it's Rod Francis and Liz McLaughlin. Is that acceptable?
Yep.
So, do we need to have any sort of formal action, or we can just proceed this way, understanding these are the assignments? All right, we'll proceed this way, these are the assignments. Next matter on the agenda is the rules of conduct. The rules of conduct have been presented. The only change from last year to this year would be that town manager also is expected to review the warrants. With that amendment, do we have a motion to approve the rules for conduct and conduct of meetings and hearings as presented?
So moved.
We have a motion to adopt the rules of conduct of meetings and hearings as presented and as amended. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. Next matter on the agenda is the select board goals. And so I'm going to read the select board goals as proposed for adoption. First, police and fire facility project, to determine the scope of the project and obtain public approval. God, I hate cell phones. I don't own one.
I tried to turn it off.
It's been going on for 15 minutes next to me.
That's not what we think, you turn it
I
off.
guess. The next one is financial planning and decision
Rules of
making.
conduct right there.
I'm trying, I got one finally big enough I can push the buttons and keep my calendar in it. Now I gotta figure out how to turn it on.
Complete comprehensive review of town operations. Adopt a long-term financial plan. In completing comprehensive review and developing long-term financial plan, pay special attention to potential for increasing revenues other than property taxes, and take financial actions in a programmatic context, both to improve FY17 budget decisions and to establish a foundation for possible transition to a program budget format in future years. Under the category Economic Development, participate actively and effectively in distribution of Wyndham County Economic Development Program energy money funding for creation and retention of jobs in Wyndham County, emphasizing private sector jobs in Brattleboro, and increase our emphasis on economic development as a town government priority in partnership with the Wyndham Regional Commission, BDCC, CEVEDS, and others. And then other goals. 1, implement pay-as-you-throw. 2, convene regional economic hub committee and develop regional hub strategy. 3, adopt updated land use regulations. 4, approve final plans and if possible, construct skate park and dog park at Living Memorial Park. 5, review and update our procurement policies. 6, review and update our employee handbook. I will say that I think that that seems like an excellent list
It's a
of
lofty
goals.
aspiration.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things, but they're all really work items that I think reflect what I believe our priorities should be for the coming year. And I'm glad to see that that's the way the first draft read, because it means that you understand at least what I think should be happening going forward, and I expect other board members probably agree based on what I've heard them say. So I want to thank you for that list. Excellent list.
One question. Would it be,
Todd is going out all now tonight.
would it be worth our time trying to set some target timeframes for the goals that are conducive to that? I mean, some of them are ongoing, but would it be worth prioritizing what we tackle first and just setting a time at least to check in on how we're doing?
March 1st, 2016.
No, I actually a similar thought in terms of sort of picking out if trying to find out if there are some things here that we all think are really important and want right at the top of the list. And one of the ways that you do that is you give people 3 little round stickies. And you have to choose. You can put one next, you can only have 3, and you have to put them on 3 things, and you look and see what those were. I wouldn't recommend that we do that right now, but we might want to take these, look at them, and then next week, or next meeting, kind of come back.
That would be next week.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And identify, like, our top, so they are in a list of priorities, because and I would put, even though Paige throws on going, I would put convene regional hub at the top of all of those other things. And I would put emphasis on economic development on top of the Entergy money thing. So anyway, just to put them in the order that we think they should be to provide a little bit more direction in terms of importance.
Other members at the other end of the table have anything to say about that?
Sounds good to me.
No,
So the way I see it is like a multi-pronged front on which we're advancing in many different areas at the same time. That's why my arms are like this, because we're
I was wondering why you
like this. And, well, we're all moving things together. And so, no. And so I'm happy to go through that effort of seeing whether there's 2 or 3 that we think should be right at the top, because I think it's probably a useful exercise to talk about. I also think that, particularly as Peter is here longer and becomes more aware of the scope of these things, he's probably better able to give us some realistic timeframes for when we think these things are going to be in process and hopefully completed. And so when we have this discussion about whether any of us think that any of these things are priorities, and we'll try to do that at one of the shorter meetings, a couple meetings out, we'll see if that's a useful project. If you can get by then to go through these with dates,
Sure.
That would be helpful. Does anybody have any proposed suggestions or comments or changes to this list of goals? I have one thing.
I have an addition.
All right, so.
Well, it's an addition and also something we talked about previously under the economic development, the second one about the partnership. We talked about inviting the regional commission to come in periodically and give us an update on things on what they're doing and what our representatives on the board are doing. And I would encourage that we in partnership with these 2 and the Downtown Brattleboro Alliance, and meet with them either on a regular basis or invite them quarterly if they can come, if they can't, not, like say, you have to come in and report to us, but just to participate with them or communicate with them more formally. And I guess DCC and 7 others are put together. I don't know if they're separate in terms of their activities. It's all the same people. I'll breathe the same air.
They are officially separate, but with
Right,
much
that's why
overlap.
they get the slash, right?
Sure, and we could put a comment, have a slash there, certainly at the Downtown Alliance. My suggestion to you about the frequency with which you want to actually bring them into a meeting and have some shared interaction with them would be that let that flow out as an action that you take in pursuit of this goal, as opposed to getting that specific in the actual wording of the goal. But I think adding the other organization is important, and I'm happy to provide an answer to the earlier discussion, happy to provide some estimated timeframes for this for your next discussion.
I don't know really what any of them are. I don't have any information about what they're going to do, so I wouldn't know when to ask to see them or to hear from them.
Sure.
The only thing that I would like to see changed is that I continue to be unclear about just what the role of the town as a municipality should be in economic development. And we, for a number of years, have discussed the fact that we need to have a discussion about what it means for the town to be involved in economic development. And so my preference would be to see the language of number 2, for example, be discuss role of town in economic development. And then it may be that our intent is to increase the emphasis on economic development as a town government priority, but I just don't know the answer yet.
Isn't that such a, to me, it's such a broad, not statement, but it's a broad subject, you know, that economic development, and it's such a long-range thing that, you know, I don't know if you can quantify it and really determine what, you know, I think our role is constantly ongoing as economic development. I mean, that's, so I have a hard time, because I know it's a little bit of a catchphrase now, and,
Yeah.
you know, and it's,
I think I'd like to try and get the meaning of it.
Yeah.
And then,
oh,
I think
I
Dave's
do
talking,
too,
yeah.
but I think it's gonna be hard to.
Right, but we can be involved in very concrete steps. We can encourage the town manager and the assistant town manager to take specific actions to try to coordinate with regional economic partners
But
and
don't
to
you think
try
we do that
to
now?
spur growth and spur investment in the town. We can deal in a much more diffuse way with that topic in towns that have 1% local option sales taxes.
I thought that was never gonna be
Sometimes,
brought up again.
yeah, but no, what I'm saying is that in towns that surround Brattleboro, that have those taxes, there's a specific pool of funds which sometimes are targeted for specific economic development projects. And I think that it would be prudent for us to have a deliberate discussion about what it means to have the town involved in economic development. I know that people in town feel that we should be addressing the topic, and rather than just saying increase emphasis, I just want to have more of a discussion about what does it mean?
What is that emphasis?
What does it mean for the town to be involved in economic development, and what are the possibilities for how we should be involved, and then for the board to make a deliberate decision about how we should be involved. Because just to say increase emphasis doesn't mean enough to me just yet without knowing what we would be doing.
I
So that's
agree
my
with you
preference.
strongly. I think,
Maybe some guidance, oh, sorry.
yeah, for us to have that conversation will help us if we decide that it is the role, one of the roles of the town government, will give us some clear action steps that we can take. And I don't think we have had those as a board previously.
I just wonder, you may be going to address this right now.
Go ahead.
I'm just wondering about what kind of guidance or models we could look for around the state.
Yeah.
That's where you're going?
That is, yes, part of where I was going. So the focused question I have for you in terms of our working this list is it okay for us to have that more complete conversation in midsummer, possibly even a little later in the year? Because our plate is so very full between now and the end of June. So I think that the way you've discussed it is really healthy, and I think that what we should do, right to your point, Dave, is I think we staff should do some work to bring you information that will be helpful for you to review in advance of having that conversation together here. And that'll take us some time to do well and bring it to you with some context for how we think it fits with our capabilities here in Brattleboro, what we ought to be doing, and then have that conversation. So I think that based on what all of you have been saying, and if that time frame is acceptable to you, that we should change this to the word that you used was discuss. If it's okay with you, I think we should use define.
Yeah, that's right.
Define the town's role in economic development, and then blend in the other changes that were suggested, and then when I add timeframes to this, I'll add a timeframe, that we'll do this in, like, between summer and fall
So,
of this next few
are you
months.
saying things don't move as quickly as you thought they were going to around here?
Some things some things are moving
Yeah.
very quickly, and then
Yes.
other things are, and for us to do them well, are gonna take more time.
No, and that's,
Yeah.
All right, so then, with those changes, do we want to approve that list of goals now formally?
I do, yeah.
All right,
Yeah, absolutely.
I move to approve the list of goals as presented with the revision to the economic development goal as discussed. if there's any concerns about the language when it's represented to us, we can address it at that time.
Good.
Is there any discussion, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. And then to adjust the select board meeting schedule, we are going to be meeting for select board meetings, May 5, 12, and 19. And so this isn't by way of a motion, this is just by way of an announcement. Because the 5th and the 19th are already regularly scheduled meetings. We have a special meeting on the 12th to deal with enterprise fund budgets and land use regulations. And then we'll be going back to our regularly scheduled every other meeting, June 2nd.
The land use regulations we were going to do on the regular.
Right.
Not on the May 12th.
Right, but as part of those 3 meetings that are coming up.
Right.
I don't think we need a motion for that. I mean, that's just an organizational matter. So we've given public notice that we're going to be meeting each of the next 3 Tuesdays. We invite everybody to attend. I think that's all the business to come in front of the meeting. Is there any further business to come in front of the meeting? Hearing none, we're ready for motion to adjourn.
So
We have a motion to adjourn. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. This was a very productive meeting. I want to thank all select board members. I want to thank everybody who attended and participated. I want to thank town manager and all other staff members who helped us prepare. I want to thank the members of the press, BCTV, ASL interpreters. Good night.